should focus then and get you a fundamental view on the market. Rajnish Kumar, CEO at Fullerton Securities and Wealth Advisors, joins in live on the show on Street View at lunch. Afternoon, Rajnish. First up, we were talking about the aviation pact that's in spotlight. This Jet Etihad deal now looks pretty imminent. It's no longer just speculation. There seems to be clear interest as far as this deal is concerned. What's your take on Jet Airways if this deal were to happen at the price that's doing the rounds, 24% stake for 1,600 crores?
Right, so the price which is being spoken about looks pretty attractive from investors' point of view. And if you look at, even otherwise, overall performance for Jet Airways has been improving. So I would think that it's a fair bet for an investor to take. But of course, deals are not something which can be, it's just hearsay or, some bit of buzz around it. Of course, there is some, looks like some bit of significant news also coming. But even then, one doesn't know for sure whether the deal is likely to happen and by when it's likely to happen. But it looks like a fair bet to me for a short-term investor to take. And also, considering the current valuation, I don't think there is too much of a downside from these levels for Jet Airways, considering that the business has been picking up. So it's probably a fair bet to take.
Right. So Rajnish, what is it that you're investing or rather recommending to your clients to buy into right now? What's looking interesting stock-wise as well as sectorally?
Yeah, market overall looks poised to move up, and we feel that focus on large caps, frontline stocks is probably better in this kind of scenario, because probably market will get re-rated at some point in time as and when, let's say, an RBI's monetary easing happens or some other good news emerges. If you look at specific sectors, what looks interesting to us for sure is financials. We continue to be bullish on financials. I would think real estate is also quite well poised. Apart from that, there's probably an opportunity also to take some contra bets on some sectors like, let's say, steel. Apart from that, I would think there are quite a few names in pharma which looks quite attractive at this point in time. So a whole gamut of opportunities. I would think this is a good time to do the pickings and build a good portfolio, because the market is likely to overall keep moving up.
Rajnish, what about the banking fact? Most analysts seem to be favoring, still seem to be favoring private banking stocks. But given the valuation difference, do you think there's case for a contra call?
No, our bias still continues to be on private banks. I would think private banks still have some way to go. And of course, one could look at, beyond, let's say, the Axis Bank and ICICI Bank, we could look at maybe a smaller names within the private banking space. But I would think it's better and safer to stay within private banks as of now, because the public sector banks, I don't think have still come out of this whole portfolio quality stress that they seem to have been under. And I would prefer private banks at this point in time compared to public sector banks.
Right. Rajnish, what is your take on the global data points? If indeed the deal on fiscal cliff is not going to go through smoothly, do you think that could have repercussions for India as well?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, fiscal cliff is big news, and it will have severe impact for everyone. However, what it looks like is that while of course it will not be an easy deal making as far as the US government is concerned, but looks like that they will sort of go through some process maybe through Q1 of Q1 of calendar year 2013, and by the end of the first quarter they'll probably have a solution, and that looks like a more likely scenario at this point in time. But if the question is that if it was not to happen, can it have some severe impact? I would think so, yes. US is a huge economy and has implications for the global economy.
But Rajnish, assuming that the deal does happen, what is it that could be a trigger for a sharp up move from these levels for the market? Will it be only after a rate cut were to come in, or do you think political developments in New Delhi could have a bearing? What could take markets to another high?
If you look at fiscal cliff, there seems to be a belief that a lot of that I would say a lot of that fear has receded. There is a general sense that probably we will not see the fiscal cliff and it will get managed. So to that extent, I would say that as and when the actual agreement is signed off and reported, there will be some fillip to the market, but I don't think that's going to be a significant piece of news, because market would have sort of priced it in by then. And to my mind has priced it in already to some extent, assuming that probably it's not likely to happen. So I think the trigger for us would come largely from the domestic news, like for example what we are going to see on FDI, on retail, or RBI monetary easing, plus of course whatever else government does in terms of talking about reforms and bringing in new things. So I think those would be the domestic triggers, would be very important for our market. And of course the other news would also, that would be important, would be around what happens to, for example, the growth numbers, and what also happens to inflation. Another bit of trigger which will be very critical for us would be around crude prices, because crude seems to be settling down to a lower level, and that will be good news for India. So I think that's one potential upside which can come through crude prices going down. Another surprise which could come would be from China, which could be a little unforeseen at this point in time, but China has sort of stagnated and there's not too much of positive news coming from China, also because of all the leadership transition which has been happening. But we are quite hopeful that China will start sending out messages around growth and development soon enough, and that could also act as a fillip for Indian economy as well as the global economy.
All right, Rajnish, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining in live on the show as always with the Street View at lunch. That's coming in from Fullerton Securities. Let's quickly address the news that we were talking about just a short while ago. Aviation Minister